All right, so let's start with some breaking inputs that have come in. It's not even been a day since the ceasefire was announced between the United States and Iran and Israel, and already there's a lot of confusion. The American President Donald Trump's latest post on Truth Social has brought a new interesting twist in the matter so far concerning the real grounds on which both the United States and Iran agreed to a 2-week truce. Now, Trump in his post has said, and I quote, "Numerous agreements, lists and letters are being sent out by people that have absolutely nothing to do with the United States or Iran. Negotiations, in many cases, they are total fraudsters, charlatans and worse. They'll be rapidly exposed after our federal investigation is completed. There's only one group of meaningful points that are acceptable to the United States, and we will be discussing them behind closed doors during these negotiations." Now, these are the points that are the basis on which we agree to a ceasefire. It is something that is reasonable and can be easily dispensed with. The comments have come shortly after a US official said that the published 10-point plan, as proposed by Iran, is very different from the one that Washington had accepted as a workable premise for talks. Now, in the same time period, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi spoke with his Turkish counterpart and told him that Tehran agreed to the ceasefire based on its 10-point plan as a basis for talks with the United States. So the crux of this confusion are the grounds that both sides agreed on to halt fighting for 2 weeks and to start peace negotiations. The talks are supposed to begin in Islamabad on Friday, the 10th of April, that is day after tomorrow, and several social media handles of Iran's embassies had shared a document with 10 points of Iran's peace proposal. But now what is interesting is that Washington seems to have contradicted the peace proposal that have been floating and that have been published by the Iranians. All right, now joining us on the broadcast to put all of this in perspective, we've got Mr. Adrian Calmel, who's a fellow at the Arabian Peninsula Institute and a West Asia expert from New York. Mr. Calmel, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. So this is day one of the so-called ceasefire, and already there are a number of contradictions that have emerged on what was agreed before Donald Trump made that announcement or via his social media post that there is going to be a ceasefire. Now it is coming forth that the 10 points that the Iranians had been talking about is not what Trump has agreed. What do you think is happening here, Mr. Calmel?
Well, good evening to you, Mohammed, and that's a very good question. What is going on here? Because, at the basic premise, you go through the plan put forward, the 10 points put forward by the regime, and at the forefront, right at the very front, is they still maintain the ability to enrich and reprocess, and that's the reason we got into this mess to begin with, is their ability to enrich and reprocess, which always leads to a nuclear weapon. So, it's you've got people from different sides of the spectrum. People are saying that this is sustainable. There's people that are saying that we should keep on with this campaign and continue to weaken the regime and try to use kinetic action to open the Strait of Hormuz. There's people that have gone through a broad spectrum. I just don't expect this ceasefire to hold. I think it's an attempt to try and alleviate some of the concerns with the oil going through Hormuz. But when you look at the Strait of Hormuz, was the last piece of leverage that the regime had to use. They've been threatening it for years, and now they finally acted. So it's kind of survival at this point. I don't know what the strategic long-term objective is, other than survival. And you could see the points. They are so contradictory. They just collide like two freight trains coming down. It's is it just a tactic to buy time? And does it even last 2 weeks? I don't know if we get to that point.
I think you mentioned something interesting. You said that you do not expect this ceasefire to hold. And I want you to weigh in on what Benjamin Netanyahu has said, that this ceasefire proposal for a period of 2 weeks was for the war on Iran, and it is not covering the Lebanon war, where the Israelis have invaded as far up as the Litani River and have carried out the biggest wave of bombings that we've witnessed in this conflict. in your assessment, the fact that Netanyahu is taking a completely different line from what Donald Trump has been talking, do you think the Israeli incursion into Lebanon could potentially result in the unraveling of this truce long before the 2-week period could expire?
Well, we're actually seeing, great question, Mohammed. We're actually seeing some messaging from the Islamic Republic already saying that Lebanon needs to be on the table and Hezbollah needs to be taken off as targets of the IAF or IDF, and there needs to be a withdrawal. In Lebanon, it's being prosecuted as another war. If the regime survives, the head of the octopus in this situation, then the tentacles are going to survive. And Hezbollah right now actually probably poses the greatest threat to Israel because of the campaign that's been launched against the Islamic Republic. Hezbollah does still have capacity, and it does share a border with the Israelis. And there's been a complete failure of the UN Security Council Resolution 1701 to demilitarize Hezbollah. So this has been a failure on multiple levels, and it's been tried diplomatically for years. I don't know.
That still remains a hot conflict zone. Mr. Campbell, do continue to stay on with this. I want you to weigh in on another important bit of information that is coming. There's some breaking news that's just coming here.